Hello friends. Welcome to Defense Matrix. On this channel you will get fully information about defense and technology. Let's view the video. When cockroaches haunted Panzers, inside the beast, the terrifying life inside World War II Panzers, imagine being sealed inside a metal beast, thick steel walls around you, the temperature rising above 50 degrees Celsius 122 degrees Fahrenheit, engine roaring inches from your back, and enemy fire echoing outside. That was life inside a German Panzer during World War II. To the outside world, the Panzer looked invincible, an armored symbol of Nazi might rolling through Europe. But to the crew inside, it was often more like a metal coffin on tracks. 4 to 5 men crammed into a tight, suffocating space with barely room to move. The smell of fuel, oil, and sweat hung thick in the air. Ventilation was minimal. Sunlight rarely reached in. And if you were unlucky enough to be in the desert campaigns of North Africa, the heat was downright hellish. Food was eaten inside. Trash piled up. Sleep was rare. Cleaning? Almost never. Over time, this created the perfect nightmare scenario: unsanitary, damp, and dark conditions ideal for pests like cockroaches to thrive. Now picture this: you're mid-battle, adrenaline pumping, shell casings dropping to the floor, and a swarm of cockroaches suddenly spills from beneath your seat or helmet bag. Distracted, disgusted, and mentally worn down, many soldiers faced a hidden psychological warfare, not from enemy tanks, but from six-legged invaders inside their own. This hidden aspect of warfare isn't found in many history books. But it paints a chilling picture of what tank crews truly endured, not just the enemies outside, but the unseen torment within. Unseen enemy: how cockroaches invaded the German war machine. While enemy shells and mines were an obvious threat to German tank crews, few expected that one of their most relentless enemies would be tiny, filthy, and nearly indestructible: cockroaches. As panzers thundered across war-torn Europe and North Africa, they became both battle platforms and temporary homes. Crews slept, ate, and even defecated inside the tanks during long missions. In such tight, hot, and unhygienic environments, these armored vehicles quickly became breeding grounds for insects, especially cockroaches. Why cockroaches? Because they thrive in exactly those conditions: heat, darkness, moisture, and leftover food. And once they got in, they were nearly impossible to remove. Reports from veterans speak of entire nests hidden behind ammo storage, under seats, and even in ventilation ducts. Some tanks were so overrun that opening a hatch would release a cloud of cockroaches, scurrying into the open like a scene from a horror film. But this wasn't just a hygiene issue. Cockroaches caused real operational problems. Crews had to wear gloves not just for protection, but to avoid the feeling of roaches crawling across their hands while handling shells. They would bite, chew through fabric, and in some cases, even nest inside personal gear like boots and helmets. This infestation had deep psychological effects. Many tank operators suffered from stress, insomnia, and poor concentration, not just from enemy attacks but from living in a biohazardous hell. And unlike enemy soldiers, cockroaches couldn't be defeated with a gun. They were an enemy that invaded silently, attacked morale, and refused to leave. It's a grotesque yet fascinating piece of military history, one that reminds us that war is fought not just on the battlefield, but in every uncomfortable, unexpected corner of a soldier's world. Steel meets biology. Why panzers were vulnerable to infestation. Panzers were marvels of German engineering, designed to crush enemy lines with their thick armor, precise optics, and powerful guns. But there was one thing they weren't built to defend against: biological invaders. At first glance, a 25-ton steel tank may seem impenetrable to something as small as a cockroach. But that's exactly what made them vulnerable. Unlike homes or barracks, tanks were not cleaned regularly, lacked airflow, and were never fumigated. Designers focused on armor thickness, gun range, and speed, not pest control. Inside, every inch was packed with mechanical systems, cramped corners, exposed wiring, gearboxes, ammunition, and grease-laden components. These gaps and heat pockets became perfect hiding and nesting areas. The tank's constant vibration and warmth actually mimicked an ideal tropical climate for insects. Combine that with the presence of leftover food scraps, human waste, and a complete lack of sunlight, and you have the ideal insect paradise. Additionally, these tanks operated in environments like North Africa, where cockroach populations exploded due to the heat. When tanks returned to base or remained stationary for days, cockroaches would crawl in unnoticed, setting up colonies in hours. Unlike aircraft hangars or naval ships, tanks didn't undergo frequent deep cleaning or maintenance between every operation. Often, they were repaired only when something broke or the crew complained, and few were eager to report an embarrassing cockroach problem. The result? Silent infestations that grew with every campaign. What makes this even more shocking is that despite being some of the most advanced killing machines of their time, these Panzers were utterly defenseless against something so basic, so primitive, and so disgusting. It was a design oversight that exposed a strange vulnerability of military technology. Even the most powerful machines can be undone by nature's smallest creatures. Battlefield disruption. When insects affected military efficiency, 350 words, it sounds like science fiction. Armored tanks, symbols of raw military power, being disrupted not by enemy artillery, but by swarms of cockroaches. Yet during World War II, this bizarre scenario became a brutal reality for many German Panzer crews. Infestations inside tanks weren't just annoying, they were operational hazards. Crews were expected to perform like a well-oiled machine. Every movement mattered. Every second counted. But when roaches scurried across controls, nested behind gun breeches, and even dropped onto soldiers' faces mid-battle, it created chaos inside the cockpit of war. Soldiers reported misfires, dropped shells, and momentary hesitations at crucial moments, all because of sudden insect movement or distraction. In armored warfare, even a half-second delay could mean the difference between survival and destruction. The infestation didn't just affect reaction time, it affected morale. Fatigued, disgusted, and sleep-deprived crews began dreading their time inside the tanks. Commanders noted behavioral changes, irritability, mental fatigue, and even increased medical complaints like skin rashes and infections. In some cases, tanks were pulled from active duty not for mechanical faults, but for full biocleaning operations. The presence of cockroaches also compromised internal communication. In a vehicle where verbal orders had to be shouted over engine roars, even the smallest distraction was dangerous. Imagine trying to focus during a firefight while a cockroach crawled inside your collar or helmet. The psychological stress was immense. Tank crews weren't trained to deal with biological infestations. They were trained to shoot, maneuver, and survive. But against this tiny enemy, they were helpless. Flamethrowers and bullets couldn't help. They resorted to desperate measures, burning cloths, sealing cracks, and sometimes just enduring it. The lesson? In war, the smallest invaders can disrupt the largest machines. And when that happens, it's not just equipment that suffers, but the soldiers themselves. The cockroach didn't just haunt Panzers, it broke them from the inside out. Lessons from the past: modern military design versus biological threats. Today's militaries have taken these strange lessons to heart. From tanks to submarines, modern defense vehicles are now designed not just to withstand missiles, but also to resist biological intrusions like insects, mold, and bacteria. Unlike World War II-era Panzers, today's armored vehicles include advanced ventilation systems, sealed electronics, antimicrobial coatings, and regular decontamination protocols. Food is stored in airtight containers, waste is managed efficiently, and resting quarters are kept clean and pest-proof. Even smart sensor systems can detect temperature and humidity spikes, early warnings for potential infestations. But the core takeaway remains the same: biological threats can sabotage even the strongest technology if ignored. What haunted the Panzers back then has reshaped how we think about defense architecture today. The battlefield is no longer just about bullets and bombs. It's also about cleanliness, sustainability, and resilience, because even the smallest bug can bring a war machine to its knees. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel Defense Matrix for more interesting and knowledgeful videos.